Good morning, guys. I sat down this morning. I'm getting ready to work on my quilt repair. It's going really well. I've been shooting some stuff to show you about that. I'm really happy with the way it's coming out. And then I opened up my Amazon package and I have a nice little bag of Schmetz needles, which is like my favorite. It's kind of ridiculous that I get super excited about little packs of needles. These are called needle cards, technically, I guess is what the word form is. But as I've mentioned many times before, the brand I sew with is Schmetz. And the needle that I prefer is a Microtex needle. It has a really sharp point. The reason the reason I started sewing with these was I think just someone at the quilt shop years ago recommended them for my art quilts, and I just like them because they're very sharp, and you know, when I'm going through and doing my like little detailed delicate work, they work really well for me. My machine seems to like them, you know. It may just be a placebo effect, but I know lots of different quilters and sewers who have like one needle that they just like, that it just works for them, you know, and this type of stuff they do, even if it's not necessarily what's, you know, made for their project. Like my friend Margie quilts all the time, and she only uses I can't remember if it's a jersey needle. I can't remember. She only uses like one kind of needle all the time. I think it's a ballpoint. I want to say a jersey, and that's just what she sews with all the time. It doesn't matter what she's making, and that's how I am with the Microtex needle. But it is extremely handy information to understand the difference between needles and the numbers and what these things mean, especially if you're going to be working with anything like leather or like fine fabrics or denim or certain knits, because some of these needles really make a big difference with things like that. Like if I'm gonna sit down and sew a patch onto a vest for my neighbor who rides motorcycles, I am definitely not gonna be using a Microtex needle. So I figured, you know, I just got all excited to open these packs, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, this would be a great video, because a lot of people don't know this stuff, or you may know, you know, some of the stuff, but not all of it, and it's certainly handy information. And I didn't know for years. I learned a lot of this working at the quilt shop, because, you know, I worked with all these women who were like super smart and knew everything. So these are all different like little packs of needles that I've had over the years, that I've bought for different projects. You know, I buy Schmetz, the Microtex ones in bulk. Like I just got 5 packs because I burned through these babies. But you know, some of these ones like the leather needles, I mean, I've had this forever. I've only used up 2 of them. But basically, you know, your needle breaks down into a couple parts. The top part, which I'm going to put up a photo here so you can see what I'm talking about. So the top is the butt, then you have the shank here that has the size on it. You can see the back side is, this is probably not very easy to see, but I'm sure you all have needles at home. So the back side is flat. When you're putting it in your machine, that's the side that's going to be facing away from you. Schmetz needles all are color coded. So they have a little colored band here. So for some reason it comes out of your package and you don't know what it is, you can refer to this color. I've rarely, you know, the only colors I have on memory are probably the Microtex and the jeans, but you can always go to their website and reference this little color code and figure out what it is to make sure if it's appropriate for your project or not. So down from there is this part here is called the shoulder, and then you have the blade, and on the blade there's a groove that runs down the front, and that is to thread the needle, you know, that's to, you know, so the thread, you know, pulls through to the eye of the needle smoothly. But on the back, and I don't know if you can see this may be very hard to see, this little cutout area here is called the shank. So on the front is the groove and on the back is the shank, and the shank can be really important depending on certain things that you're sewing. Certain needles have, you know, different shanks for different reasons. And then obviously this is the eye, and then, you know, the point and the tip. And now I got to figure out which package I got this from so I can put it back. That was my denim needle. So anyway, the needles that I like to have on hand is I almost always have I have a pack of universal needles, which something like this is great. If you don't know what to get, you can always get one of these. It comes, as you can see, I've used lots of them. It comes with a couple different types, a couple different sizes, and there'll even be a double needle, which is a pretty nifty thing. If you've never sewn with a double needle, you should try just to experiment on some scraps with it, because you can do some cool detail work with that. Especially like when I do the aprons and I do the detailed stitch or the bibs, you could always do a double stitch, you know, or 2 different colors or whatever. But anyway, so the ones I like to keep on hand is, it's always good to have a pack of universal, if nothing else. It's good I like to have stretch, because from time to time I do sew stretchy things like jersey knit, t-shirt, that kind of stuff. I always have jeans or denim, and as you can see, this one's just labeled jeans and this one's labeled jeans denim. It's the same. And then it's always good to have a ballpoint, which is, you know, pretty much similar to the stretch. It's the for things like jersey. See, it says jersey ballpoint. And then I do have leather, just because I occasionally get asked to do projects like that, but a lot of people just never sew with leather, so this isn't necessarily something you need. But if you're brand new and you really don't know what to get, you know, just get this little pack. It's got universal in several sizes. It's got a double, it's got a stretch, and it's got a jeans in a couple different sizes. One little pack like this will get you through quite a few projects. Something people don't realize is needles don't last forever. Like when I first started sewing, I would sew until a needle broke, and I only changed the needle if it broke. That's not the deal. You can tell if your needle's starting to get dull. One, if you've been sewing for a while and you haven't changed it, it's a good idea just to change it out. It's kind of like changing the tires on your car. You know, it's better to have a little preventative maintenance before something breaks and that screws up your project or screws up your machine, or God forbid you get stabbed, which I've definitely had sharp needles flying at my face before. So like I said before, Schmetz is definitely my preferred brand of needle. There's lots of needles out there, but I've been sewing with them for years. They're very well made. They're, you know, a really reputable company, and they also have a great website where if you go, there's all kinds of information. So you can print stuff out, you know, that has like definitions of different needle things. They've got some videos too. They've got, you know, like I said, the color coding chart and all kinds of information on there, though sometimes I feel like it's a little wordy, so we're gonna just dumb it down a little for you when it comes to what different needles are. So the first one would be obviously the jeans denim. Like I said, this has a ball point, so anytime it's a ball point, it's like a rounder tip, and that's so it can, you know, work its way through like knit and woven fabric. So instead of just piercing a hole, you know, it's literally trying to like create a space. It has a reinforced blade, you know, so it's less likely to break. And it's just designed for penetrating like extra thick fabrics. So definitely if you're gonna do any kind of project with anything thick like that, you absolutely want to upgrade to a heavier duty needle. Then you have something like an embroidery needle, which is made more for synthetic fabrics like rayon and polyester. It's a little more delicate. Like I said, there is the jersey ballpoint needle, which is designed for sewing knits, which is, you know, things like t-shirt material, stretchy kind of things. Like I said, it can be labeled, you can have stretch, you can have jersey. They're essentially the same thing. What else? Oh, and again, because they're labeled ballpoint, they have that slightly rounder tip. You have a leather needle, which is pretty much common sense. I mean, it's super heavy duty. It's going to be really sharp, and it's made for heavy stuff, artificial leather, non-woven synthetic things like that. I would never consider sewing leather with anything but a leather needle ever. It's completely pointless. It will break, it will snap, you'll be screwed no matter what. Metallic needles, which is something that I don't really use. I actually like printed this out just to make sure I got this right. They are designed with an enlarged polished eye to accommodate specialty threads and prevent shredding. I don't work with a ton of specialty threads. I did do a really cool class with a quilt artist named Libby Lehman years ago, who's like incredible. And her style is like so different and wild than mine, and we used all these crazy threads. Hang on a second, I'll grab one. Here we go. So this is a Sulky Thread as you can see, I mean, it's basically, it's like tinsel, you know? When you sew with stuff like this, I mean, it can get really like shredded up, fall apart. It can be super frustrating trying to sew with something like this if you don't understand that the problem is that you need a more appropriate needle. So again, I almost never ever use anything like this, so I don't own metallic needles. But it's definitely something to consider if you want to get really creative and wild and do some artsy things. Again, the next one is obviously Microtex, my favorite needle. It has a super sharp point, so it's very good for like really fine, delicate fabrics. So when I'm doing my art quilts, like the quilt I did for me with the batiks, which the batiks aren't necessarily super delicate, but you know, like if I punch a hole in there, that hole stays. So if I have to pull out some stitches and stuff, I want as little evidence as possible that there was a hole there before. So I like to use a Microtex that's really sharp and very fine so that that hole is as small as possible. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, Microtex is also great for microfiber fabrics. So if you're sewing with Minky and doing baby quilts and stuff, it's a good option for you. There's Quilting Needles, which are designed specifically to so that you have less damage if you're sewing through layers. So those are specifically for layers, and they do have a slightly rounded point. The stretch needle, like I said, is fairly similar to the jersey needle. But it's more for like synthetic and elastic knitwear. And this was one. This is one. I had too much coffee today. This is one where the scarf is important. So it has a deeper scarf on the back side of that needle to prevent the stitches from slipping. And then, let's see, the two more that they list on their website is they have a top stitch needle, which I've never used a top stitch needle. That's another one I don't have experience with. But it's made, it has the groove on the front is larger, and it's made to accommodate larger diameter threads, which means, you know, thicker thread. So if you're, you know, there's definitely all different kinds of thread, you know, from this to like, you know, embroidery thread like I use, which is about a 40, that's the width. That's a little bit thinner, but then it can get thicker and thicker right up to like upholstery thread, which is pretty heavy duty stuff. And if you're trying to sew with a thread like that without an appropriate needle, you're going to have a lot of problems. And then the only other needle left is the universal needle, which is basically just good for everything. You know, it has a small ballpoint, you know, so it's not too sharp, it's not too rounded, and you can sew knits, you can sew regular cotton, you know, you can sew all kinds of different things. I don't have a pack of just universal, so just look at this half. There's one in there, and the color of it is silver. Anyways, like I said, it's definitely an important thing to know what you're working with if you want to do something out of the ordinary, or especially if you're going to be sewing something like garments. You know, different, like if you're sewing something silky and soft, you want a more delicate needle. If you're sewing something heavy and chunky, you want a heavier duty needle. I hope this helped you guys out, and if you have any questions, please let me know. And I hope you have a great day, and I hope you learned a little something about needles. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to show you. So my best friend Annie, the one that passed away this summer, she did all hand embroidery, but she had a thing with collecting old needle packs. Now these aren't machine needles, these are hand needles. But when she passed away and I cleaned out her sewing room, I went through her sewing things, and she had all these like super old little like kits, you know, like she would go to, I guess, antique stores and stuff and collect them, and they're like, you know, look, Sewing Susan. Look at this one. This one's cool. Woolworth's Needle Book. That's fancy schmancy. And you gotta love the like the foils, you know, but there's so many in here. She has like sewing circle, you know, like, oh gosh, I don't even know. These are some heavy duty chunky stuff. But she even had best made needles. These ones must be the best. Look at that. Woo! Oh, I'm gonna have to clean those up. Anyway, I just love Auntie was so cool. You know, she always had like vintage things and vintage clothes and all kinds of neat little things. And when I was cleaning out her sewing room, this was just an awesome little treasure that I found. She even had this ancient little sewing needle kit, this little leather pouch full of needles, and in it was a handwritten note from an uncle to his niece giving it to her as a gift. And the note is so old. I mean, it's definitely pre-World War II, mid-20s, sometime between the 20s and 40s in there, that time period. And it was like such a special little thing that I found when I was cleaning her sewing room. But of course, I put it somewhere, and now I don't know where it is. So I wasn't able to share that with you. I'm sorry. If I can figure out where I put it, I'll show it to you in another video. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day. I'm going to get working on this quilt repair. I promised it would be done by the end of the month. I'm starting Tina's quilt. That's got to be done by Valentine's Day. And I'm still working on designing the art quilt for my friend Carrie. That one is still in my brain right now, so I don't have anything to show you for that yet. But when I get started on that, I think you're going to really like what I'm working on. So stay tuned, you guys. And yeah. I'll see you soon.